That night, amid the blizzard sweeping through the Wyoming mountains, an old veteran drove his patrol route around the small mountain school with his loyal dog, Max. As the headlights swept past the wooden fence, they caught sight of a boy, thin, frail, wearing a torn coat, with only one arm left, kneeling in the snow as he tried to hold a dying bird close, as if trying to preserve the last warmth of life itself. Max moved forward quietly, sniffing the air, then let out a low bark, as if he sensed something the human heart had yet to understand. That night, what they found in the snow was not just an abandoned child, but a doorway to memories the whole town had tried to bury for far too long. If you still believe that faith, kindness, and second chances can melt even the coldest hearts, subscribe to Healing with Max and stay with us until the end of this story. It's a journey you will never forget. And may your heart stay warm, even when the world outside grows cold. The storm had only just broken, but Wyoming still looked buried under silence. Snow lay heavy across the valley, an ocean of white swallowing fences, rooftops, and roads alike. The small mountain school sat half-hidden in that quiet wasteland, its windows dark, its flag frozen mid-wave. The wind moaned through the pines like something half alive. Inside a battered patrol truck crawling along the perimeter road, Raymond gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles pale beneath worn gloves. His breath fogged the windshield. Beside him in the back seat, Max, the old German shepherd, stirred before the world had even begun to wake. His sable coat, streaked with silver, shimmered faintly in the dim light. A low growl vibrated in his throat. Raymond's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "What is it, boy?" The dog leaned forward, nose pressing against the glass, eyes locked on the blur of snow beyond the headlights. Raymond slowed the truck. The tires crunched over a sheet of ice, headlights sweeping past the wooden fence that marked the edge of the schoolyard. That's when he saw it, something small against the endless white. A shape. Movement. He braked hard. A child. Kneeling. Raymond's heart clenched as he stepped out into the cold, boots sinking into the drift. The wind cut through his jacket, slicing into his lungs like shards of glass. Max jumped down beside him, ears forward, tail stiff. The beam of the flashlight trembled slightly in Raymond's hand as it followed the boy's outline. Thin frame, torn gray coat, hair plastered to his forehead. He was shivering violently, and his breath came in small, quick clouds. The boy was bent over something half buried in the snow. A small bird, feathers dull, chest barely moving. His good hand cupped it gently. "It's cold," the boy whispered, voice brittle. "Like me." Raymond froze. The words hung there between them, fragile and sharp. "Easy, son," he murmured, crouching beside him. "You shouldn't be out here." The boy looked up. His eyes, icy blue, glassy with fear, met Raymond's for a heartbeat before darting away. That was when Raymond noticed his left sleeve hung loose, empty. The boy tucked it quickly into his coat, as if ashamed of it. Raymond wanted to speak, but the air in his chest turned heavy, the words too slow to come. Max inched forward, nose twitching. He sniffed the bird, then the boy, letting out a soft whine, half question, half recognition. The boy smiled faintly. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," he said. "I just didn't want it to die alone." Raymond's throat worked around something that wasn't quite a breath. The boy's neck, pale under the falling snow, bore a dark bruise that trailed under his collar. Raymond saw it, and the world seemed to stop for half a second. He could smell iron in the air, blood or memory, he wasn't sure which. A sudden sound made both of them look up. From the second floor of the school, A figure stood framed in a window. A woman, motionless, staring down at them. Her dark hair was tied tight, her expression unreadable. Nora Gray, the principal. The curtain dropped a second later, shutting them out like a door slamming between two worlds. The boy flinched. "I should go," he said softly. "They'll see me." "Wait," Raymond called, taking a step forward. But the boy was already walking away, swallowed by the falling snow, his footprints vanishing as quickly as they formed. Max barked once, low and uncertain. The sound echoed through the emptiness like a warning. Raymond stood there for a long time, watching the white world close itself again, as if the moment had never happened. Then he climbed back into the truck, the silence pressing hard against his chest. The rest of the day dragged on beneath a gray sky. Raymond finished his patrol, checked the gates and the empty classrooms, but his mind never left that spot by the fence. Every time he blinked, he saw the boy's eyes, too calm for a child, too broken for someone so young. That night, the wind returned. It screamed across the valley, shaking the cabin walls. Raymond sat by the stove, staring at the flames flickering over the rough lines of his face. Max lay near the door, restless. Every few minutes, the dog lifted his head, ears pricked toward the storm. When the second howl came, from outside this time, Max rose abruptly, pacing. Raymond frowned. "You hear something?" The dog growled low, deep from the chest, then padded to the door and scratched. Raymond pulled on his coat, lantern in hand. The moment the latch lifted, the cold slammed into him like a wave. Max bolted into the night. He followed, snow crunching underfoot, until they reached the same stretch of fence where they'd seen the boy. Max began to dig, fast, desperate, claws tearing through layers of frozen snow. Raymond knelt beside him, breath heavy, heart pounding. Then Max stopped. Between his teeth he held something small. Raymond reached out and took it carefully. A pair of wool gloves. Tiny, torn at the fingertips, stiff with cold. And across the palms, dark, crusted stains that only the light of the lantern could reveal for what they were. Blood. Raymond stared at them for a long time, the wind screaming around him, the snow swallowing his breath. Max stood beside him, chest rising, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. Somewhere beyond the fence, the wind carried a sound, so faint it could have been a cry, or just the echo of a memory he wasn't ready to face. Raymond didn't speak. He only held the gloves tighter, feeling their weight, as if they were whispering a story no one had wanted to hear. And above them, the snow began to fall again, soft, endless, merciless, covering everything that the world still refused to see. Morning broke gray and hollow, the kind of light that seemed to exist only to remind the world of what it had lost. Raymond stood in the sheriff's office, the worn pair of gloves resting on the desk between them. Sheriff Danner was a big man with a soft jaw and small eyes that never stayed still for long. He lifted one glove, squinted at the dried stains, then chuckled under his breath. "Kids fight here all the time," he said, the words heavy with indifference. "Don't get involved, Cole. You'll just stir up trouble you can't fix." Raymond didn't answer right away. He looked at the man, the uniform pressed but the badge dull, the smell of old coffee clinging to the air. He knew that tone. It was the same silence he had heard in another place, years ago, when radio calls went unanswered and friends were left behind in the smoke. That sound still lived somewhere deep inside him, cold and heavy. "Maybe trouble's already here," he said quietly. The sheriff didn't reply. He simply turned away, muttering something about paperwork as the gloves disappeared into a drawer. Outside, the wind scraped across the street, pushing bits of snow along the sidewalk like forgotten confessions. Raymond walked back to his truck, Max pacing at his side, head low. The dog stopped once to look over his shoulder at the sheriff's office, a low rumble in his chest that Raymond didn't bother to quiet. He understood it. By the time they reached the school, the day had softened into pale light. Children's laughter echoed faintly through the windows, but one voice was missing: Samuel's. Raymond noticed the empty desk near the back of the classroom when he passed by on his routine check. The teacher, a young woman with red cheeks and tired eyes, said only, "He hasn't come today," then turned away as if the absence were a stain she couldn't wash off. When he returned to the truck, Max was pawing at the door, whining softly, tail rigid. The sound was unlike him, low, anxious, almost pleading. Raymond frowned. "You miss him too, huh?" But the dog didn't settle. He scratched again, louder this time, until the sound of claws against metal made Raymond's chest tighten. He sighed, started the engine, and turned down the old road that led toward the valley. The boy's house sat crooked at the edge of the woods, its roof sagging under snow, its door swinging in the wind. A single light bulb flickered weakly inside. Raymond stepped out, his boots crunching over broken glass and frozen mud. The smell hit first: sour whiskey, old smoke, something rotting beneath the boards. Max stayed close, ears flattened, a quiet growl in his throat. Inside, the place looked less like a home than a wound that had never healed. Furniture lay overturned, the floor littered with bottles and torn clothes. Against one wall, a man snored in a heap, his face lost behind a beard streaked with gray. His shirt was unbuttoned, his hands dirty, and the empty bottle on the table still tilted, as if mid-drink. Raymond recognized the scent, the kind of liquor soldiers use to forget the sound of gunfire. "Samuel?" Raymond's voice was barely above a whisper. Something moved under the table. He crouched, and there he was. The boy, curled tight like a trapped animal, eyes wide and red from crying. The torn coat he'd worn in the snow was still damp, the sleeve tucked around his missing arm. When Raymond reached out, the child flinched, but didn't run. Max stepped closer, lowering his head, and the boy's trembling eased just enough for him to whisper, "He gets angry when I talk." Raymond glanced toward the man on the floor. The father stirred, grunted, then rolled over without opening his eyes. His breath reeked of bitterness and loss. Raymond looked back at Samuel and extended his hand. "You're coming with me, all right?" For a moment, the boy didn't move. Then slowly, he placed his small hand into Raymond's gloved one. Raymond lifted him gently, feeling how light he was, too light, and how his heart raced against his chest. They stepped into the cold together, Max circling close, watchful. Snowflakes clung to the boy's hair as they reached the truck. Raymond opened the door, helping him climb in. That's when he heard footsteps crunching behind him. A woman's voice cut through the wind, calm, steady, but hard. "Don't." He turned. Nora Gray stood a few paces away, her dark coat buttoned to the throat, hair pinned back beneath a wool hat. The morning light caught the pale lines around her eyes. She looked neither angry nor kind, just tired in a way that didn't come from sleep. "Nora," he said, "he can't stay here." "You don't understand," she replied flatly. Her gaze never reached the boy. "It's better if you stay out of it." Something in her tone made the air feel colder. Raymond took a step forward, jaw tightening. "Better for who?" Before she could answer, A deep growl broke the silence. Max, standing between them, teeth bared, fur bristling along his neck. It was the first time Raymond had heard that sound since the war. Raw, protective, and final. Nora froze, her breath catching in her throat. The dog's eyes, dark and steady, locked on hers as if he'd recognized something hidden there. Raymond didn't move, neither did she. The snow fell heavier, filling the silence between them like a warning no one wanted to hear. The storm rolled in before noon, swallowing the mountains in a curtain of white. By afternoon, the town was still, roads closed, classes canceled. Only the school lights remained, flickering through the snow like the last embers of a dying fire. Inside, Raymond and Max walked the empty halls, the hum of the generator breaking the silence. The air smelled faintly of dust and floor wax, and every sound, every creak of the old wooden floor, felt louder than it should have. Max's paws made soft echoes against the tile, his ears twitching at each distant gust that shook the windows. Raymond moved with slow purpose, checking doors and locks as the storm howled beyond the glass. Snow pressed thick against the windows, muting the world outside. There was no laughter, no voices, only the rhythm of his boots and the steady rise and fall of Max's breath. He paused near the faculty wing. A single bulb flickered overhead, stuttering in the draft that crept through the seams. That was when the noise came. A sharp bang, followed by the whisper of papers sliding against the floor. Max's head jerked up. He let out a low growl and trotted ahead, nose to the ground. Raymond followed, pushing open a half-closed door. A small brass sign read, "Records Room." Inside, the light swung from its cord, throwing shadows across rows of filing cabinets. One of the drawers hung open, the metal warped from age. Wind from a cracked window had blown through, scattering papers like pale birds. Raymond stepped closer, picking one up. The heading read, "Incident Report, Student Injury." He knelt, gathering several sheets. All were from the same class, the same teacher, the same faint pencil handwriting. Each listed a different name, but the phrasing never changed. Accidental fall during recess. Every report ended with the same neat signature. Nora Gray, Principal. Raymond frowned, tracing the familiar rhythm of those words. Accidental fall, he murmured. He had seen reports like this before, back when paperwork was used to bury what people didn't want to face. Max whined softly, brushing against his knee. As Raymond gathered the scattered pages, something else caught his eye. A single form half hidden beneath a filing cabinet. The corner was torn, the ink faded, but one name stood out, crossed through with a firm black line. Ethan Gray. Deceased, 2011. Next to it, a paperclip held a photograph. He lifted it carefully. The picture showed a boy of about 10, standing beside a wooden fence under a summer sky. He had an artificial arm, polished metal gleaming in the sunlight. His smile was small, uncertain, but his eyes, those same pale blue eyes, were unmistakable. Raymond felt his pulse tighten. The boy looked almost exactly like Samuel. He turned the photo over. On the back, written in a woman's handwriting, Ethan's first day back at school. He said the world looked smaller without noise. The words blurred slightly where a drop of moisture, maybe a tear, had stained the paper. Thunder cracked in the distance, rolling through the mountains. The wind pushed harder, slamming the file room door against the wall. Max barked once, sharp and alert. Raymond turned, instinct kicking in, but it wasn't danger. It was something falling. A framed photo had slipped from the wall, landing face down near the door. He crossed the room, lifted it slowly, and froze. The photograph showed a group of students lined up in front of the school. Most faces were smiling, blurry, innocent, but at the center stood a boy with hair pale as straw, wearing a coat too big for him, and a sleeve hanging empty at his side. His eyes, captured mid-blink, looked haunted. Raymond's hand trembled slightly. The face was Samuel's. The light above flickered again, once, twice, before going out completely. In the darkness, the wind roared through the cracked window, scattering the papers across the floor once more. Hundreds of sheets whispering the same two words as they slid past his boots. Accidental fall. Accidental fall. Accidental fall. Max pressed against his leg, fur bristling, a low whine in his throat. Raymond stared at the photo in his hands, feeling the weight of everything unspoken settle over him. Somewhere down the hall, a door creaked open, and the storm howled through like something alive. But he didn't move. He just stood there, the picture of the boy who wasn't supposed to exist trembling in his grip, while the snow outside buried the world one layer deeper. The storm clung to the school like a living thing, its moans weaving through every crack, every forgotten corridor. Snow pressed against the windows so thick it blurred the world outside into a wall of white. Raymond moved through the hallways with a flashlight in one hand and the crowbar in the other, Max trotting at his side. The building felt different now, heavy, watchful. From somewhere deep below, a sound rose again. A creak, low and uneven, like a whisper through bones. He found the stairwell hidden behind the maintenance door. The steps descended into darkness, the air thick with mildew and age. At the bottom waited a steel door sealed with a rusted lock, the word storage nearly erased by time. Max sniffed along the seam, tail rigid, then barked once, short and sure. Raymond's breath fogged in the cold as he lifted the crowbar. One strike, then another. The lock shattered, the sound echoing through the basement like a gunshot. The door groaned open. A wave of stale air met them, dust, rust, and something that smelled faintly like decay. Raymond's flashlight swept the room. Collapsed desks, broken chairs, forgotten toys scattered like offerings to a memory no one wanted. His beam landed on a small metal toy truck tipped onto its side, one wheel missing. Nearby, half buried beneath paper and dirt, lay a child's crutch, snapped in two. He crouched and touched it. The splintered edge was sharp, still clean. The image of Samuel's trembling body in the snow flashed in his mind. He clenched his jaw and rose. The sound came from behind him, the faint scrape of a shoe on the stairs. Raymond turned sharply, the flashlight cutting a pale arc through the dust. At the top stood Nora Gray. Her gray cardigan clung to her shoulders, soaked through from snow. Her hair was loose, streaked with white strands that framed a face far older than her years. In her trembling hand, a small pistol caught the light. She didn't raise it. Her eyes met his, and her voice came thin and cracked. "That boy," she whispered, as if confessing to the dark. "I lost him in Kandahar. I thought I could forget, until I saw this one." Raymond stood still. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "Ethan." Nora's head bowed. "He was my son," she said, tears spilling freely. "There was an explosion. They told me he didn't suffer, but they lied. When I came home, I tried to build something good. A school, a place where no one else would be hurt. But when I saw Samuel, it felt like he'd come back, only to die again." For a moment, the world narrowed to the sound of her voice. The storm above, the groan of the pipes, the flicker of the dying light, all fell away. Raymond lowered his crowbar. "You don't bury pain by locking it away," he said softly. She gave a hollow laugh. "It's easier to bury ghosts than to love again," she said. "Love, it makes you remember." Her hand shook. The pistol wavered, then dipped toward the floor. Raymond stepped closer, careful, voice calm. "You don't have to carry that anymore, Nora. Not the gun, not the guilt." Her breath hitched. For the first time, her eyes softened. Then Max barked, sharp, urgent. His body stiffened as he darted to the far wall. He pressed his nose against the boards and began pawing furiously. Raymond moved quickly, his flashlight revealing a section of the wall crudely rebuilt, nails fresh and bright against the old wood. He pressed his ear to it. Beneath the storm's howl came a faint, irregular sound, knocking. "Nora," he said, "there's someone behind here?" Her face went white. No, that's impossible," she whispered, stepping back. Raymond didn't wait. He wedged the crowbar under the first plank and pulled. The wood screamed as it splintered, nails clattering across the floor. Max barked again, desperate. One more heave, and the boards gave way. The beam of light cut through the dark space beyond. Raymond froze. Curled in the corner was Samuel, filthy, trembling, his coat torn and his cheeks streaked with grime. One sleeve hung loose where his prosthetic arm dangled lifeless. His lips moved soundlessly, eyes struggling to focus. Nora's pistol fell from her hand, clattering to the floor. "Dear God," she gasped. Raymond crawled inside, lifting the boy gently. Samuel stirred, voice barely a whisper. "He locked me in," he said, "because I made him look bad. After they sent me home." His head fell against Raymond's shoulder. Max pressed close, whining softly, his breath clouding in the cold air. Raymond turned back toward Nora. Her tears had frozen on her cheeks. She stood there, hollow and breaking, looking at the boy as though seeing her son again. Not the ghost she'd buried, but the child she'd once loved. The lantern flickered, throwing their shadows long against the wall. Outside, the wind screamed through the vents, but inside, the sound was softer now, almost like a prayer. Raymond held the boy tighter while Max sat watch, and Nora sank slowly to her knees, the weight of years finally breaking across her shoulders. In the silence that followed, only 3 heartbeats remained, one scarred, one trembling, and one loyal, still beating for both. The storm came without warning, roaring out of the mountains like a living beast. Snow tore across the ridge, turning the sky white and the earth into blindness. Raymond fought the wind as he carried Samuel into the small cabin, Nora following close behind. The door slammed shut against the blizzard's scream. Inside, the dim light of the stove flickered across their faces, exhaustion, fear, and something quieter beneath it, a fragile trust born from too much loss. Max lay near the fire, his fur damp and heavy, eyes following every sound. Samuel sat wrapped in a blanket, trembling but awake. Nora stood by the window, staring into the storm as if searching for ghosts only she could see. Raymond crouched to feed the stove another log, his hands shaking slightly from cold and fatigue. "It'll pass," he said softly. "Storms always do." But outside something moved, a shape staggering through the snow, slow, deliberate. Raymond's head lifted. Max growled low, deep in his chest. Nora turned, eyes narrowing. Through the window, a dark figure emerged from the blur. The man stumbled toward the cabin, coat flapping, a bottle swinging from one hand, a gun glinting in the other. Samuel's breath hitched. "My dad," he whispered. Raymond's heart sank. The man, mid-40s, broad, face red and raw from alcohol and cold, stopped just beyond the porch. His eyes were wild, unfocused. He slammed a fist against the door. "You think you can take my boy?" he slurred. "He's mine!" Another bang. The handle rattled. Max rose to his feet, every muscle taut. Raymond stepped in front of the door. "He's safe now," he said through the wood. "Go home." But the world outside had no room for reason. The door burst open under the man's weight. Snow poured in, swirling between them like smoke. His gun lifted, wavering, finger twitching on the trigger. Raymond reached for him, but in that instant, Max lunged. The sound of the gunshot split the storm. The bullet struck Max's shoulder, spinning him sideways into the floor. Raymond hit the ground, snow and splinters flying. Samuel screamed, crawling toward the dog, his small body shielding Max from another shot. The man swayed, breathing hard, muttering words that dissolved into rage. Nora didn't move at first. She stood frozen by the window, eyes locked on the boy, and the blood spreading through the dog's fur. In her mind, she saw it again. The flash of fire in Kandahar, her son's hand reaching for her, the sound of the world ending. The same helplessness, the same unbearable loss. Her hand found the pistol she'd carried since that day. For the first time, she didn't hold it out of fear, but out of love. "Put it down," Raymond shouted. "Don't!" The man turned, gun still shaking. Nora's breath came sharp and steady now, her tears cutting clean lines through the dust on her cheeks. She raised her weapon. For a moment, the two guns faced each other, two broken lives bound by one child. Then the storm outside seemed to pause. A single shot cracked through the cabin. The echo hung in the air before fading into the wind. The man stumbled, eyes wide with surprise, and fell backward into the snow. The gun slipped from his hand, vanishing into the white. Nora stood trembling, the pistol still smoking, her expression blank as if she hadn't yet returned from wherever she'd gone to find the strength to pull the trigger. Raymond pushed himself up, blood on his sleeve where Max had brushed against him. "Nora," he whispered, but she didn't answer. She dropped to her knees beside the dog. Max's breathing was ragged, his fur dark with blood. Samuel pressed his hands against the wound, crying, "Don't go, please don't go." His voice cracked like glass. Nora reached out, stroking the dog's head with shaking fingers. "You brave, foolish soul," she murmured. "You never stopped saving us." Her tears fell, mixing with the blood on his coat. Max's tail thumped once, weak, almost imperceptible. Raymond knelt beside them, hand firm on the dog's neck. The pulse fluttered, fading under his touch. Outside, the storm began to quiet. The wind softened from a scream to a sigh. Inside, only the crackle of the fire remained. Raymond bowed his head, his voice barely more than breath. "You did good, boy," he said. "You did good." Max's eyes stayed open, fixed on Samuel, calm, unafraid, as if to say it was all right now. Then the light in them stilled. The cabin fell into silence, heavy and holy, as the last snow of the blizzard drifted against the door. The snow was gone by the time the robins came back. For the first time in months, sunlight stretched across the hills of Willow Bend, soft and golden, glinting on puddles where drifts of ice had once been. The town had thawed slowly, like an old wound learning to close. And though the storm had passed, it left behind a quiet that felt almost sacred, the kind that made people breathe softer, walk slower, and remember to listen again. In the distance, The school bell rang for the first time that spring. Children filled the yard, chasing each other across the wet grass, their laughter bright enough to carry on the wind. A mural now covered the east wall of the building, painted in deep blue and pale gold. The words beneath the image of a German shepherd read, K9 Max, Guardian of Willow Bend. Sunlight caught the letters, and for a moment, they seemed to shimmer like they were alive. From the porch, Raymond stood with his hands in his jacket pockets, watching. His eyes followed the movement of Max, the old dog now bounding through the yard with a slow, proud gait. The fur around his shoulder still bore the faint scar from that night, but he moved with an ease that spoke of something more powerful than healing. Resilience. Children called his name as he passed, tossing sticks, laughing when he barked back at them, tail wagging in big, clumsy circles. Inside one of the classrooms, Nora Gray wrote a line of poetry on the chalkboard. Her handwriting was steady, elegant, each word drawn with care. Her voice, once clipped and formal, now carried a calm warmth, like snow melting under the sun. "What do you think this means?" she asked her students, her eyes soft, her tone no longer guarded. The children pondered, whispering their guesses, but she smiled before they could answer, as though the lesson was less about words and more about listening. At the back of the room, Samuel sat near the window. His thin arm moved slowly, guiding a pencil with his remaining hand. His new wooden prosthetic rested on the desk beside him, light, smooth, carved with care by Raymond's own hands. Along its edge, in letters precise and deep, were the words, "He taught me to hold on." Samuel paused to read it, running his fingertips across the engraving before looking outside. Max was in the yard again, circling the other children, barking joyfully, the sunlight catching in his eyes. When the class ended, Samuel ran outside, his laughter joining the rest. Max spotted him instantly, bounding toward him, stopping just short to nuzzle his side. The boy wrapped his arms around the dog's neck and whispered something that only Max could hear. The dog leaned in, pressing his head gently against the child's chest. Raymond watched them from the porch, the corners of his mouth turning upward in quiet contentment. Nora stepped out to join him, her hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes reflecting the soft gold of morning. For a while they simply stood there, two people who had seen too much loss to take peace for granted. The sound of the children's laughter carried across the field, mingling with the bark of the dog and the low hum of the wind. Raymond broke the silence first. "Maybe healing isn't forgetting," he said, his gaze still fixed on the boy and the dog. "Maybe it's learning to love again." Nora turned toward him, her voice low, steady. "And to let the living stay alive," she replied. There was no sadness in her tone now, only a quiet strength, the sound of someone who had finally forgiven herself for surviving. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of new grass and rain. A bird flew past, its shadow flickering across the mural's painted face. Raymond smiled faintly, lifting his hand as if to salute the dog in the painting, the guardian who had watched over them all. The camera slowly pulled back, the frame widening. From above, Willow Bend gleamed beneath the sunlight, the school, the hills, the winding creek, all washed in gold. The last patches of snow melted into the earth, and the laughter below faded into something softer, the rhythm of a town finally at peace. And for the first time in a long time, everything was still. Not the silence of loss, but the quiet of a morning that had learned to begin again. In a small mountain town, a wounded soldier, a broken boy, and a loyal dog found each other. not through fate but through compassion. They taught us that healing doesn't come from forgetting, but from the courage to love again, even after the storm. If this story touched something in you, take a moment to honor the quiet guardians still walking among us, the ones who protect, forgive, and keep hope alive in ways we may never see. And if you believe the world still needs stories like this, stories of loyalty, kindness, and second chances, we'd be grateful to have you stay with us. Don't forget to subscribe, share a little warmth, and help us keep the light burning. Until next time, may your days be gentle, your heart steady, and your faith unshaken, even in the coldest of winters.